Welcome to this meeting of the Partnership Cabinet on Wednesday, the 30th of April 2025. My name is Councillor Simon Werner and I'll be chairing the meeting. This meeting is being held in person at York House, Windsor, and via Zoom being streamed live to the public on YouTube. I remind all attendees in the meeting that participation indicates consent to the audio and video being streamed live and acknowledgement that after the meeting, it will continue to be available in the public domain. Firstly, I think it would be really useful if all the Cabinet members could introduce themselves. I'm Simon Werner and I'm Leader of the Council.
Councillor Mark Wilson, Lead Member for Corporate Services. Councillor Jeff Hill, Lead Member for Highways and Transport and Customer Service Centre.
Councillor Richard Coe, Lead Member for Household and Regulatory Services.
Good evening, Councillor Amy Teasey, Cabinet Member for Children's Services, Education and Windsor.
I'm Councillor Adam Beaumont and I'm Cabinet Member for Planning, Governance and Asset Management.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Jack Douglas. I'm Cabinet Member for Communities and Leisure.
Good evening, Councillor Karen Davis. I'm Lead Member for Climate, Biodiversity and Windsor Town Council.
And I'm Catherine Del Campo, Lead Member for Adult Services, Health and Housing.
Thank you very much, everybody. For councillors and officers who have not introduced themselves, once I've invited you to speak, before you do so, please state your name and capacity in which you're speaking, if that's appropriate. We have no public speakers registered for this evening's meeting. I'd just like to take this opportunity to remind all persons wishing to speak at tonight's meeting that all comments should please specifically be in relation to the agenda item and its published report. So we'll now start on the agenda items. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Apologies received from Councillor Jones.
Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest? No? Excellent. Minutes of the last meeting. Any questions about the minutes of the last meeting? I have one regarding the property company, Adam. Can you just give me a quick update on whether it's happened?
Yeah, thank you, Simon. Yeah, I'm pleased to report that, since we approved the way forward, things have been in motion, and in fact, come tomorrow, the new structure will be in place in terms of the various movements of staffing that we talked about. So we're bringing the staff back into property services within the council. So yeah, we're basically there in terms of not having an independently operated property company, but having that in-house service. So I'm very pleased with that. There's still more work going on, but the large part of the work has been achieved. So good news.
Okay, so from midnight tonight, there will be no more property company, RBWM property company. That's great news. Thank you. Any other comments on the minutes? No? Everyone happy? We have no appointments. Yeah, the part 2 minutes. Has anyone got any questions on the part 2 minutes? If they have not got any comments, then we can approve it. If they have, then we can move it to the end of the meeting. Everyone happy with the part 2 minutes? Fantastic. Okay, I will sign off both of those. We have no appointments. So, Owen, do you want to do the forward plan?
Thank you, Chair. So a number of changes again. So the month 11 budget monitoring report, which was scheduled for tonight's meeting, was removed due to the finance team focusing on year-end accounts. That should have been reported at the last cabinet meeting, but was just missed off as it was submitted on the day. The air quality guidance note is a new item for the 21st of May meeting. The Cookham neighbourhood plan referendum is a new item for the 21st of May meeting. Then we've got 4 new items for the 1st of July meeting. The supported housing development for people with a learning disability at Imperial Road, Windsor, the appointment to outside bodies, the Q4 and end of year 2024-25 quarterly assurance report, and the social care transformation.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else? Adam.
Thank you, Simon. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify with the item that's been added for the Cookham neighbourhood plan consent for a referendum. The plan is currently under examination, so we're putting that in as a placeholder. But obviously, the examination continues, and it will be, once the examination is concluded and reported back to the parish council for them to confirm that they wish us to move forward and with a referendum. So we're hoping the timetable will fit with that. But I just want to clarify that it's not entirely under our control, but I think it's better to have it in the plan than not have it in the plan.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Adam. If that's all on the forward plan, Amy, standards and quality of education, a review of the academic year 2023 to 24.
Thank you, Simon. I'll keep this relatively brief because the paper sets out lots and lots of detail, but I'll just give you some highlights. This report basically summarises the education performance of the borough and compares us to our statistical and local neighbours and nationally to see how we're getting on. So first of all, the successes. We have 89% of our schools or academies are rated good or outstanding. So and 100% of our early years providers, that's nursery age children, receive a second, which is really fantastic news that the great majority of our children are in good, high quality education settings. We know that in early years, so sort of the 3 to 4 year olds, the performance there, the good level of development at the end, our year 1 phonics tests and our key stage 4, so that's our GCSE performance, is really good and above national averages. We have excellent teacher training in the borough. We have our own provider, and Ofsted recently confirmed that we are training our teachers very well to go into our schools, and we've trained 25 new teachers in this year that we're looking at. And our attendance across the borough is above average as well. Now, obviously, and a few other things. We've set up this social emotional mental health service. Now, we know that this is a real issue in schools, and this service helps to prevent young people from being permanently excluded. And in the year of the report, 142 young people were supported by the service, and only 5 of those went on to be permanently excluded. So that's a really positive thing to keep our young people in schools and support them with their learning, because we know if they're not in school, things can go even worse and wrong for them. So that was a real highlight I wanted to pull out. Now, obviously, we are always looking for ways that we can improve. We know there are things that we will need to work on. And in the year that we're looking at, our Key Stage 2 results, that's the level that children achieved at the end of Year 6 when they're 11 years old. Our Key Stage 2 results were slightly lower than they should have been. Children are tested in their reading, their writing, their maths. The reading and the maths are assessed externally, so the papers get sent away and they're marked. The writing in the last few years has been assessed by teachers themselves, and they mark a range of children's work and then they submit the scores. And what we found is that our teachers in the borough were just a little bit too cautious. They didn't want to overinflate the children's results, and they just came in a little bit lower than they should have been. And that affected the scores and just meant that we dipped a little bit below the national average due to the moderation. But we've put in steps to make sure that staff feel much more confident with moderating writing at that stage and training and so forth to make sure that doesn't happen again. And then the main issue that we're definitely facing in the borough is the disadvantage gap. And that's the gap between the performance and ability of children who are disadvantaged financially and in other ways. And there's a gap between the haves and the have-nots. It's a sort of shorthand way we talk about it. And we're seeing that gap being wider than the national average in the borough. And this is not a new issue. This has been going on for a long time. The gap is widening, and we really now need to get to the bottom of this, and we need to sort it out, because it's just not good enough that some of our children are not doing as well as they could do, and we're not helping them catch up with their peers as well as we could across the borough. So we're putting lots into this. We've already had successful projects with some specialist educational trainers who come in and worked with our schools to ensure that quality first teaching. but we are putting a real focus on it. We're going to have a multi-service board, an education board. I was very keen that we implement this in order to really drill down into the reasons. What was the effect of COVID? What's actually going on? Why are children not quite hitting where they should be when they're 11, but how are they catching up by GCSE? So what's happening in our schools there? Is it to do with the school system? Is it to do with any of the influences that we have? So we're really going to try and get a grip of this long-standing problem. I will leave it there. The only thing I would want to say is to thank our amazing head teachers, TAs, support staff, early years providers, nursery teachers, school business managers, caretaking staff, everybody who works in our schools and in our education system to provide our young people with the very, very best start in life. And I am so grateful to them. It can be a thankless task. I did it myself for 15 years, so I know exactly what it's like. And I just am so grateful to all of those people who work very, very hard for us. I'm very happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Amy. Any questions from anybody?
And I think if I've read correctly, the academy schools are performing slightly less well than the LEA schools and holding the score down. And if I understand properly, our sort of borough figure includes their results, even though they're run by national government. It's a shame that sort of their numbers are counted in our score when obviously national government is in charge of them and we aren't.
Thank you. Yes, you're right. We count all of the schools in the borough, but obviously a lot of our schools are now academies, and we cannot directly influence their performance. We cannot just go in and tell them what to do because we don't run those schools. But we have a very good relationship with the academies, most of them in the borough, and we can offer support, we can offer guidance. But you are right that most of the schools that have dipped and have received those requires improvement Ofsted ratings, a higher percentage of those are academy schools rather than our own maintained schools. So that is an ongoing issue. The new Children Wellbeing Bill has talked about giving increased powers back to local authorities to help tackle that issue, but we'll wait and see how that looks.
Thank you very much, Richard. Great question. I think we've got Julian, Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. Look, this is, I think, on the surface, very good news for everybody. And again, I'd like to thank all the teachers and people who are working in the schools to make this happen. What I was curious about, though, is the number of children who we have just leaving school who are now no longer in education, training or employment. And it seems to me that that's an area where in a region like this, we should be doing better than we are, and we should be helping those young people into a firm career. So I wondered what is happening there in that particular area to help these younger people into life beyond school. I've got a further question, and that's that I like to understand in more detail where RBWM stands from an education point of view compared to other local authorities, because obviously, whilst it's good news that our schools seem to be on the surface performing well, we mustn't get complacent and think that just because a school is good, we don't need to do anything. And I'd like to understand what we're doing to improve the schools that are good and outstanding to ensure that they stay on top of their game.
Thank you very much, Julian. They were really good questions. Thank you. Always good. Amy.
Thank you. I think it's important to just note, Councillor Sharp, that this report is reporting on the sort of 23-24 academic year. So we're already beyond that now. We're in 25-26. So the data that is on the young people not in education and employment and training, it is behind. It has improved. There has been a focus on that, bringing together different agencies to be supporting that. And I think also it's also important, somebody who's not in education, maybe a young person who's already started to raise a family. There are lots of reasons that somebody may be classified as that. So it's just worth bearing that in mind. On the other one, you were asking about where we fit in nationally. Obviously, the detail of the report does go into, it compares us to national and regional southeast on a number of measures. So you could be looking at Key Stage 2 results, you could be looking at GCSE results, you could be looking at early years, and we perform quite well. We did have a dip with the Key Stage 2 results, as I've explained, and that did make us fall in the table, but we do still consistently perform well. I think if you want there are lots of figures. I think you need to delve into the report to get individual ones. And you talked about, you were talking about what are we doing to support our schools. We have link advisors. We have advisors who go out and work with our schools. We offer our schools training. We've done some work with this thing called walkthroughs, which is a way of looking at education and helping get that quality first teaching. So we really support our schools and offer them the training and everything that they might need to make sure that they can improve and keep going forward. And we're never complacent. Let's just be very clear about that. We always want our schools to be better. And if they're good, we want them to be outstanding, although the Ofsted have removed those bands, but we want them to do the very best that they can for our young people.
Okay, thank you very much, Julian. Appreciate it. Oh, we've got Sally. Sally, you've got a question.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is just regarding the Anchor Support Catch-Up Programme. I think it's, from what I understand, it's a 12-week programme that enables the children who aren't ready for early years to kind of come out of the early years class and do this 12-week programme. And then once they are at the stage that they're ready and equal to their peers in those sorts of very, very basic things, then they can rejoin the classroom, which is an amazing thing, because that would therefore mean that everyone is finishing early years and being able to move forward at the same level of doing those basic things. My concern is that these are based in Windsor and Maidenhead, and obviously it is a growing issue as well in Sunninghill and Ascot. And I do understand that it is available through the PAR referral panel. So what I'm asking is, if children from Sunninghill and Ascot who need to go in this programme, is there any sort of transport that can be provided for them should they get a place, if that makes sense?
Thank you very much, Sally.
Thank you. I'm really pleased, actually, Councillor Cameron, that you've raised the Anchor, because it is an excellent new resource. It didn't open with a huge amount of fanfare, which I was a bit sad about, because it's amazing. If we can get things right for the children when they're really young, and as you say, set them up so that they come back into school, and it's a really focused programme. It does accept children from across the borough. It is based at the Lawns, which is one of our fantastic maintained nursery schools in Windsor, but it does serve children from across the borough as needed. And obviously pupils that need school transport and are eligible for school transport will be supported with that. So if they need to be there, we will make sure that they can get there. That's not an issue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sally and Julian, for such good questions. Okay, so are we all happy with that paper? Yes, agreed? Agreed. Fantastic. Okay, Jeff, over to you. Highways maintenance contract, delegation of authority to award.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This is the highways maintenance contract. If you remember I think several previous administrations ago under the Conservatives, this whole batch of work was put out, was all outsourced, something which I vehemently disagreed with. So I'm very pleased to see it coming back in. One of the key points of this contract, and I will go into some detail in the contract, is that we're bringing the inspection regime back in-house. So we've currently got 4 inspectors. So no longer are the highways, so is the highways contractor marking their own homework, as I put it. We're marking the homework for them. and we're getting much more value out of the contract and much better value for the taxpayer, and consequently better roads. There's also an important point in this new contract, and that is social value. That is being scored as part of the contract, and that is, I believe, 5% of the value of the contract. So that's a new item in there. So the contract's much tighter and we're getting much better value out of it. In terms of what it covers all the routine and reactive repairs, the major and minor carriageways, footways, structures, maintenance of signs, road markings, gully clearance. I know that sits with Richard more than me. Minor projects, including road resurfacing and bridge maintenance. We've done a lot of that recently. And responding to highways incidents, highways defects. And obviously the winter service is part of that, which is gritting and salt bins. It's worth about 2.2 million. And with grants from the Department for Transport, that comes to about anything between 2.5 and 6, depending on how much money they give us. And we only know year on year, so that's impossible to say now. That's not a great way to run things, but that's central government for you. In terms of the timetable, should this paper be approved, then we will go out to pre-tender, March, April 2025. So we're pushing on the barriers there. The tender stage would go from April this year until July this year. Then we'd have delegated authority award, should this paper be approved. Mobilisation in October to March 26, and then the start of the new contract 1st of April 26. I think that's about it, and it's really over to Cabinet now to approve the delegation authority to myself and the director for place to award the contract once we've been through all the processes.
Thank you very much. Makes sense to me, and I would take the opportunity to say. I know the members have been doing a lot of work with the officers on improving the contract procurement process, and I just want to thank everybody that was involved in that, and it certainly seems to be bearing fruit now. So any questions anyone's got or comments? Oh, Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. I listened to what Councillor Hill was saying, and I'm a little bit confused because this contract was advertised in Construction News this week, and it was billed as a £115 million contract, not 2.2 million. So someone is confused somewhere on the value of this. When I looked through the report, it looked to me, I think, like about a potentially a £8 or so million a year contract, trying to add up the numbers that were in the report, which would, on a 7-year billing, put it to about 56 million. And then if you take the extension of a further 7 years, would take it up to over 100 million potentially. But that was just one point. What I wanted to understand, though, is really how, as part of this process, and it's a long-term contract, we're going to ensure that there is value for money over the lifetime of that contract, because obviously situations can change, costs can change, and I wanted to understand how that was going to be managed. And also I'd like to understand what the break clauses are in the contract, so that we could get out of it in the event that it's not turning out to be an effective contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. Have you sent through the copy of that magazine to Jeff or the officers for us to see, just so we can?
It's in the public domain, that magazine. So I would have assumed that you would have it. It must have been advertised, so you must have put it there.
Oh, I think probably there's obviously some confusion there. If you can actually send that a copy of the magazine to me, just scan in and then we'll take that away and find out what the difference is. On the second point you raised, I think I'll let Jeff speak in a minute. But what we've done is something that wasn't done previously before we came to power. We've actually got contract management staff, which, Julian, I don't know whether you've come across that, but it's a way of making sure that we hold the contractors to account for what they promised to do. So, of course, when we came to power, there weren't actually any contract management staff. Seemed a bit bizarre to me, but apparently that's how it worked. But Jeff, do you want to give a more detailed answer?
I think you've done well enough, actually. If I can just say on the billing, I did actually go at pains to make the point that the 2.2 million comes out of the borough, out of council tax, and then depending on the award from the Department for Transport, it'll go up to something like 6.5, and then if we have SIL and S106 in there as well, that pushes it up even further. So it's quite easy to get to the number that Councillor Sharp alludes to, and I would suggest a little bit more detailed read of the papers, and that will just come steaming off the pages. In terms of contract management, the leader's absolutely right. We didn't have any, and now we've got contract management. And of course, the other way we're going to keep the contractors in line is with inspectors. Not to put too fine a point out on it, to my chagrin, the Conservatives outsourced the entire highways team, or virtually the entire highways team, and outsourced all of the contracts and the inspectors too. So we have no way of really holding the contract to account and really challenging their work. Well, that's changed dramatically, and it's already starting to have a major impact because we have already employed the inspectors ahead of the contract. So that's how we're going to keep it in line. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Well done. Congratulations on sorting that out. I've got, okay. Anyone else want to comment? Sally, good to hear from you.
Hi there. Hi, thank you, Chair. My question is more about the delegated authority of it. If a multi-million-pound contract is going to be let by this council and it concerns really some of the most important issues our residents have, such as potholes, I'm struggling to see that should be done through delegated authority. And I'm asking if once the bids are out there for this contract, could it come back to full council for full discussion? It's not a small contract. It is really, really big. And I struggle to see that just with a delegated authority to a councillor who, with all due respect, has struggled with the £1.3 million roundabout, that we should really be bringing this back to full council for as much more scrutiny and more transparency as possible.
Shall I take that question?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. First of all, I'm not struggling with the £1.3 million roundabout, and the contract is on schedule and it is on budget, and as a result of increased traffic loading on the A308 and that junction, which is the direct impact from that is from the borough local plan, which was passed by the Conservatives, which again I fought and I voted against, particularly the major developments in Maidenhead, southwest of Maidenhead, and that's why that is being upgraded. In terms of the award of the contracts, the director for place and the cabinet member come in right at the end of the process, after a legally binding tendering process has been run, and after our contract management people have sifted through the bids with a fine-tooth comb and evaluated them thoroughly. So when the result pops out at the end, and we don't know what the result will be, there will be scoring, and all effectively the officer, Andrew Durrant, and I do is rubber stamp it. We are not deciding on the bid. The bids are being scrutinised in extreme detail, and it is a legally binding process. I think that's all I've got to say on that.
No, thank you. Well done, Jeff. That quite neatly describes the process. Thank you for that. Any other questions?
I don't know whether Councillor Connon could, get some advice from a relevant officer as to how these things work. It seems like she might be a bit confused.
Yeah, I'm sure we can arrange that kind of briefing for you, Sally. We have anything from Neil or Helen? No, okay. So any more questions? You know, we're always available to answer them. Thank you very much. Can we? Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions from the panel, the cabinet? No. Okay. Is that agreed, everybody?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Okay. So the next paper we've got is the contract for nursing care home placements.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully this is quite a straightforward one. Sundown Park Care Home has been providing us with residential care for some time now, and they've been rated outstanding by CQC 3 times in succession, which is quite rare. And the commissioning team have managed to secure a new contract for 22 block beds at a rate that is significantly more attractive than if we were to pay for them on a spot placement basis. Important things to note are that all 22 beds are currently occupied by RBWM residents. So if we didn't renew this contract, then they would all need to be moved or switched to a higher spot rate. It's no secret that we're looking at ways to run our own in-house care homes in the future to provide support with our residents with most complex needs. However, I would imagine that we would always look to excellent providers like Sandown to provide us with care as well. This contract will run for 3 years with 2 possible extensions of 1 year, with price increases limited to inflation, and the cost of the contract is already included in our budget for 25-26. So I can see no reason not to award it, and I hope you can all support this paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Any comments or questions from any of the cabinet? Mark.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a very small point, just to note really that this does offer good savings against the spot rate, which I think is really important, and also it reduces exposure to market risk as well by effectively taking a piece of our ongoing need and locking rates in. So yeah, I think it's a good deal.
Thank you very much, Mark. Any other comments from councillors? No. Can we agree the paper? Agreed. Thank you very much. The next one we have is the quarterly assurance report. Mark.
Thank you, Chair. So just to introduce this and to recap about the purpose of the quarterly assurance report, it's a critical mechanism to support good governance, accountability and transparency, and it was a key factor in securing the agreement from national government for our financial support package for this current year. So the report covers an assessment of how RBWM performing relative to the deliverables and the key performance indicators in the council plan for last year, in this case, as well as reporting on the risk environment, the transformation programme and internal audit actions. And again, just to emphasise, the preparation and the detailed review of the QAR is a vital mechanism in ensuring value for money for residents. By bringing together the financial objectives and performance with service objectives and performance, we're able to effectively manage that balance of financial control and service delivery and ensure that where we do need to make adjustments, they're made in a controlled manner by informed decision making. So this quarter, we're looking at the quarter to December with some January data. And overall, we've now moved to 67% on the green rating from 52% last time. And essentially a number of indicators that were amber have been converted to green, and also some of those greens have got even better. So just a few highlights of the progress in this quarter's report. We've implemented the Mosaic Adult Social Care Case Management System that went live in January 2025. And this importantly will contribute to more efficient and effective service delivery with better financial management and more automation of previously manual processes. Highlight from Children's Services is that the percentage of education, health and care plans completed within the statutory 20-week timeframe was at 100% in the quarter. And also in planning, the progress of processing applications has improved, to above target due to an internal reorganisation of the team. So the team is now structured into 2 area teams and a major applications team, as well as having a focus on engaging in more pre-application discussions. I think this is a great example of smarter working and testament to this administration's proactive approach in improving things. On the financial side, we've improved the focus on recovery of aged debts in adult social care, with 284,000 being recovered in this quarter from long outstanding balances. And also on the customer service side, response times have exceeded target, with 94% of calls being answered within 2 minutes and only 2% of calls being abandoned after more than 5 seconds. So before I hand over, or before I invite colleagues to talk about their services in detail, I just want to mention a new initiative that's currently being implemented in the council, which is a consolidated database of all the deliverables from the council plan, all the actions from the financial improvement and sustainability plan, and importantly, all the recommendations from the SIPFA reviews from 2020 and 24. This, colloquially known as a super tracker, will be a very important feature of the quarterly assurance process going forwards once it is complete. And this will ensure the alignment of operations to the council plan and the various actions needed to ensure the council can function efficiently and effectively in future. It's basically a one-stop shop for council improvement activities, and it pulls all that reporting and all that tracking into one place. And that follow-up was a major omission of previous Conservative administrations, and is one of the ways the Liberal Democrats and the Partnership Cabinet are fixing the mess of past failures and building a strong, resilient council that can truly deliver for residents across all of its service areas. Now I'd like to invite colleagues to discuss their service areas in more detail.
Catherine, to you.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you, Mark, for that introduction. I know you've already mentioned it, but I'm really happy to see that Mosaic is bedding in and allowing us to get on top of billing and particularly direct payments. I've spoken previously about how Mosaic can help support the quality of data entry, not allowing users to skip information, and extensive manual data checks have given officers a high level of confidence in the recording process. So that's all going really well. I also spoke about how the system gives us levels of granularity that allow individual managers to be responsible for spending against their share of the budget. And I understand that the first finance and performance meeting was held last week to track progress. So that's all moving in the right direction. There's been some heartening downwards movement in permanent admissions to care, which I'm pleased to see. The recent ASCOF ratings covered in paragraph 6.8 might go some way to explaining that, with 80.6% of respondents feeling that they have control over their daily lives. This may be evidence that efforts to keep people living independently at home are starting to pay off. Speaking of ASCOF, we still score highly across a number of measures, coming in the top 10 of around 150 authorities across 5 measures, and above the national average in many more. However, in some areas our rankings have slipped, and looking into the data, we can see this is where respondents have moved from happy or very happy to neutral rather than unhappy. And it is to be expected when we are tightening our belts and offering purely statutory support in many cases, and we're now noting this as a risk. I'm pleased to see increased uptake of drug, alcohol and smoking services. In the case of drugs and alcohol, it's due to increased referrals. And for smoking, it's the fact that we've increased clinic locations across the borough. So there's far more opportunities for people to access support. Shared lives is listed as a challenge, which is due to delays with our partner council finalising their governance processes. This scheme has been for a long time an important part of our ambitions to have more people living independently, but we are at the point where we have to start exploring alternatives whilst maintaining dialogue with our partner council. On housing, it's heartening to note that we're placing more people in temporary accommodation within the borough, thanks in part to the opening of St Eben House. However, the situation remains challenging. There has been talk that the government might pass responsibility for housing asylum seekers from the Home Office to local authorities. And as a result, we've escalated our housing shortage risk from medium high to high. We continue to work with registered housing providers to increase availability of social and temporary housing, leveraging the local authority housing fund, as well as our refurbishment of John West House. And on John West House, I just want to clarify the timelines, because it could be inferred from the report that the project has slipped. Just to be clear, we are still planning to complete the project in October and for the first rough sleepers to be able to move in December. However, it might take longer to commission the temporary accommodation, and we'd expect people to be moving in the early part of next year. I have asked the in-house property team to continue to seek opportunities, both in terms of locations and looking for grant funding, so that we can offer more homeless households safe, quality housing close to their families, friends and local networks. And going forwards, I want us to do this in a much more planned way. Both Sawyers Close and St Edmunds were projects that we inherited, and we sought to influence them at a later stage. But future projects would, of course, have our involvement from the start, and we can shape them far more in line with our policy priorities, which is for social housing and for temporary accommodation. Mark, you mentioned the super tracker. I did have a brief demo of it, and thank you, Kevin. And I think it's excellent, and it's really going to allow us to take a deep dive into how the council's operating. So I just want to add a huge well done to everyone involved in bringing it forward. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. It's really good hearing that in-house property team.
Yeah.
Had been mentioned. Already showing the direction. Amy, you've got a few words?
Yeah, thank you. I'll keep it relatively brief. I just wanted to pick up on what Mark said about the EHCP. That's the Education Healthcare Plans. There is a target that is put on all councils to try and make sure that these plans for children with special educational needs are completed within 20 weeks. That's a target that all councils try and work to as a basic target. Obviously, we want to be quicker than that. And we have achieved 100% in the quarter we're looking at here. Overall, the year to date is at nearly 90%. And I think it's really important we put that in context. With our southeast neighbours, most of them are achieving, that's 48%, and nationally we're looking at around 47%. To be working in the sort of 90 to 100% range is really, really good. And we know there are very near neighbours who are looking at 16% of plans completed within the 20-week timescale. So that is fantastic. And that's due to putting back capacity into the team. And it's just evidence really that having the right number of staff to do the job pays dividends. If we don't have the people, we can't do the work. So that's excellent. I also just wanted to pick up on the success of the Family Hub and the Early Help Service, because I was lucky enough to attend the Achieving for Children Staff Awards this afternoon, and some of the Family Hub were very deservingly recognised for their commitment, their hard work, and this team are helping to consistently get good outcomes for our children and young people. That early help service, getting in early when families need support, it means we're preventing families from coming into needing statutory care, and they're doing a fantastic job at doing that. So it's really mitigating risk there. Obviously, we still really are facing a challenge with having sufficient placements for children who do need to come into care, and our numbers of foster carers have dropped. Lots of foster carers are retiring. Lots chose not to come back into it after COVID. There's a national shortage of foster carers, and so we have set ourselves a very aspirational target there of 85%. We're currently reaching around 50%. But we're working really hard to recruit and retain new foster carers. And I will mention again that we have a fantastic scheme where we will reimburse people's council tax if they live in RBWM and they become an in-house foster carer, and for every month that you have a child or children placed with you, we will reimburse your council tax. So it's those kinds of thoughtful incentives to encourage people who maybe wouldn't have ever thought that they could be a foster carer, as well as other really good benefits, that it is something you can do as a career choice. This is something you could do, and it's a really rewarding thing to get into. So that is our challenge, but it's one we're really trying to tackle head on. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Amy. Okay, if there are no other comments, can we agree that paper? Oh, Helen.
A couple of questions and then a suggestion. In 4.8, you mentioned Mosaic, which I understand has been really successfully implemented, with, I think, hardly any hiccups at all. And I just wonder, have you thought, why was it so successful? And what are the lessons learned from that implementation and the success of it that could be rolled out to other things that you are going to implement? That's my first question. My second relates to paragraph 420, where I read that you're excluding certain indicators if nothing has changed, and therefore they're not reported. And I just feel a little cautious about that, because if something was not reporting well and it's still not reporting well, then it hasn't changed, and therefore it's not being reported, and therefore it might be neglected. So I wonder if you thought about the risk of not reporting such indicators like that. And then the third thing I want to say is a suggestion. This is an incredible rich data source about what the council is doing and how it's improving and where its successes are. And it's actually so rich that I think there'll be people who will say, I can't even start looking at it because there is so much there. And I wonder if it might be an idea to have a briefing session for members of how they can use this to understand what's going on, and they in turn then can tell residents, because some residents believe that we're doing nothing in the council any different to what happened before. And those keyboard warriors who obviously don't read this detail, then corrections could be made. So I think it's like a selling job. And I think the first people to sell it to might be the members, who a lot of people don't be looking at masses of data. So that was just a suggestion. So those are the 3 points.
Thank you very much, Helen. 3 really good points. I'll take the third one, Catherine the first, and Mark the second, if that's okay. So as far as councillor briefing, I would be really keen to get more all councillor briefings on different subjects. And I think both this and the sort of wider thing of the council plan would be really useful. I'm sure you remember when we first started the council plan, the briefings that we did and the consultations we did, and I'd like to keep that going. So yeah, I really like that suggestion. And take it on. And there's other things I think as well that I think councillors will really benefit from briefings on, like the procurement process, for instance. So Catherine, do you want to take the mosaic?
Yeah, I will make a start, if that's okay, and then maybe I can hand over to Kevin, because it is very much an operational question, I think. But my perspective on it is that key to the success of this project was putting the right people in place. And what happened in that original decision of Cabinet of April 23, which was the previous administration, was that the funding was put aside for the software, for the actual stuff, if you like, but the expectation was very much that officers would just deliver this alongside their day jobs, and that was not realistic or sensible, in my opinion. So we did. Quite early on, we found that additional funding, and we brought in experts to do the job. And I think that is absolutely key. I will say that we still did it at in a very cost-effective way, and that I have heard of other authorities who've implemented Mosaic and spent considerably more than we did. But you know, for me, that was the key thing, was getting the right people in place in terms of how we share that learning. If I can hand over to Kevin with your permission, Chair.
Keep it short, but speak to Helen afterwards and go into detail.
Thank you, Chair. I'll do that. I think Councillor De Campo is absolutely right that it's about having the right people. I think the thing that those people were able to do is then energise our existing staff to make sure that they understood what the limitations of the system were and what its capabilities were, so they were guiding it. And that enabled all of our teams then to be involved in the process early. So I think that's the second big learning. And the last one, before I talk to Councillor Price separately, is that the other decision we made very early was to use the functionality that was already there and proven in the software system, and not to re-engineer it specifically for us. So trying to use the system as it was designed and tweaking the way we worked, so we were getting the most from the software, rather than having a custom piece of software that we couldn't support and couldn't look after. And that's something which I know we're taking forward in other systems. It's a really important way of getting the best value out of a piece of technology. Happy to talk to you, Councillor Price, separately.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Okay, and the second question, risk of not reporting.
Yes, just on those indicators, let me look into that in detail, because there may be one or two different reasons in terms of why things have been removed. But as I say, there are good reasons. And so if I can come back to you directly on that. Yeah, please.
Thank you very much, Helen. We've had really good questions from the other councillors tonight. Thank you. Okay, so can we agree that paper? Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so next on the agenda is the commissioning and integrated sexual health service for East Berks. Kathleen.
Thank you, Chair. So we've had a few papers like this now where we're asked to approve the use of ring fence money for the delivery of a statutory service. So local authorities have a duty to provide or make arrangements to secure the provision of open access sexual health services for everyone present in their area, covering free testing and treatment for sexually transmitted infections, and notification of sexual partners of infected persons, and also free contraception with reasonable access to all methods of contraception. Bracknell Council have traditionally led on the provision of sexual health services for Bracknell, RBWM and Slough, and the proposal here is to continue to do that. This is definitely an area where economies of scale can and do definitely come into play. Our Director of Public Health has prepared a useful set of slides, which you can find in Appendix F. This is for our Cabinet briefing a few weeks ago, but I thought it was really useful in providing some of the data around the need for sexual health services and the timeline for delivery of the new contract. So I did ask whether that could be attached to the agenda pack for this meeting. You're being asked to approve the procurement of the contract via Bracknell. The initial term of 5 years being from 2026 to 2031, followed by 2 possible 1-year extensions. You're also being asked to approve the inter-authority agreement between the 3 East Berkshire councils and the procurement process outlined in the Part 2 paper. That's all I want to say, really. I hope you can support this paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Any questions or comments on the paper? No? Anything from? No. Okay, can we agree the paper? Agreed. Fantastic. And now we're on to the sale of freehold interest in Windsor Yard Shopping Centre. Adam.
Thank you, Simon. I'm pleased to propose the recommendation to approve the sale of the council's freehold interest in Windsor Yard Shopping Centre and delegate authority to negotiate and agree the sale option agreement with the company UREF. The council currently owns the freehold of Windsor Yard Shopping Centre and is the direct landlord to UREF, which holds a long leasehold interest with 105 years remaining on that lease. Sadly, the shopping centre has faced high vacancy rates. We saw in the QAR the vacancy rates for Windsor at large are 11%, so almost as around the same levels as Maidenhead, and we've often spoken in this in this cabinet about the issues in Maidenhead, but they're almost as acute in Windsor. So it's important to note that, and I think though those high vacancy rates have been exacerbated by the closure of Phoenix back in 2017. That's sort of a flagship department store. Obviously, Daniels is still there, which I'm very pleased about. My children who enjoy the toy department are very pleased that it's still there as well. But it did have a major impact for the loss of Phoenix. So given that, there's clear economic benefit to seeing the scheme of regeneration move forward, and hopefully that would inject some very much needed vibrancy into this really important retail and food and beverage area of the town centre. So in 2022, UREF submitted plans to regenerate the shopping centre, including new uses such as cinema, apart hotels, offices, retail and hospitality. These plans received a resolution to grant permission from the committee in 2023, with permission to be granted upon completion of the necessary developer obligation agreement. As well as providing economic growth, benefiting residents and visitors, following regeneration, there would be a significant uplift in business rates collected, which of course has a direct benefit to the council and council taxpayers. In preparing this report, terms have been agreed to sell the council's freehold interest. In return, the council will receive a large capital receipt phased over 2 years. Based on independent valuation reports, which are appended in the Part 2 appendix, I'm satisfied that this represents best consideration reasonably obtainable. In fact, the capital receipts will be significantly in excess of the valuation we received. The sale would be conditional upon UREF obtaining that final planning permission, but as noted before, it's already consented in principle. It also would be contingent upon then putting in place a construction contract for the cinema, so that we have that added confidence and assurance that things are moving ahead properly. Following lengthy series of negotiations, I really do believe that this recommendation represents the best outcome for all parties, financially, but more importantly, in terms of achieving this much needed regeneration work. In fact, without going into the specifics, the deal is actually structured in a way that's designed to incentivise the purchaser to move forward at pace with the scheme. In conclusion, the transaction represents an excellent opportunity to enable the regeneration of this important part of Windsor Town Centre to move forward, and therefore I'm happy to commend it to the Cabinet. Thank you.
Fantastic, Adam. Thank you very much. Really good news. Amy.
Thank you very much. I'm extremely excited by this. I think it has been a long time coming, and I think that this is particularly going to appeal to residents of Windsor who, have sadly seen our town become a little bit quiet and sad at that end, and the shops going and things closing down, and of an evening it is very quiet there. This is going to breathe new life into that part of Windsor. This is going to be the biggest regeneration of Windsor that we will have seen, practically since the castle was built. But it's going to be fantastic because, with a cinema there, families will want to come in the evenings. It will hopefully encourage, the sort of evening sitting out, cafe culture, maybe some restaurants in that area, and just a really nice feeling, and hopefully just bring that to life. And it will obviously appeal to visitors to Windsor. There'll be more for people to do. It might make them stay longer. It's going to have a great effect, and I'm really grateful to officers and also my colleagues who've been working so hard to unstick this deal and get it over the line. I think they've done a great job. I'm very happy to support it.
Thank you, Amy. Richard?
Yeah, I'm really glad that it's obviously clear that the sort of split ownership of the site was holding up the redevelopment, and the redevelopment is something we really need. You've got a good price, you've got the cinema. It's really good outcome, and well done to everyone involved.
From my point of view, I've always thought it really sad that Maidenhead has a really nice cinema and Windsor doesn't, and that just seems so unfair to me. So, I'm really glad that we managed to get that sort of written in so that it would definitely happen without any wriggling out. So really fantastic news. Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm absolutely delighted by this as well. I think the development obviously is in the public domain, and a lot of residents have approached me, asking questions about what's happening. And certainly in a year or so ago, I kind of didn't really know, and I was proud to be invited to sort of help out a little bit in some of the work that was going on behind the scenes by Councillor Jones, Councillor Teasey, and I think a really positive outcome. We've unlocked something that was basically stuck in a kind of a limbo, and with I think the creativity shown by officers and by the developers, we've got a really good deal here. This is above a recent valuation, and it's a fantastic development for the town. I think it's very noticeable now that the town centre turns very quiet when retailers close. While many other towns have thriving evening economies, and sort of into the early evening, especially when the weather's like this, there can be a real buzz in the town centre. And I think the ripple effect will be hopefully far and wide throughout the centre of Windsor. So yeah, very, very, very pleased that this has come to Cabinet, and I'm very pleased to support it.
Fantastic. I've got Neil.
Thank you very much. I must say, in the report 4.7, having that table with no figures in is particularly tantalising from an editorial point of view, even though those numbers are in the other bit. I think leaving the empty table there is could have been replaced with that in part 2 or something. It looks a bit weird. A lot of debate about this. People are sort of noticing it at the last minute. The hard facts is we have to find a way of realising asset sales to pay down some of this revenue position that we're tapping into from government. So, and this is a sensible thing. I wish somebody had put in the contract that they name it King Edward Court again, because it drives everybody in Windsor mad, calling it Windsor Yard. And people couldn't understand why, with a 1/3 shareholding, we couldn't influence the naming of it, but you can't. But the bull fact is, as I said, I worked out a rough figure. If indexation had been in, we'd be getting £6.8 million a year now. But that was not how it was structured. So therefore, that extra margin was never going to happen when things tail down. And let's face it, we're developing something with 1/3 of the interest being held by somebody else. And that profit share above 33% would still apply. And this is it. So it makes it less attractive for a developer. We're not going to ever be in a position, I think, in the next few years to be able to develop it ourselves. And it was a pretty revolutionary thing back in the 80s to use that piece of empty ground and to develop what is currently there. So I think it's a great thing. And we've got to bear in mind, in 105 years' time, £1.5 million might buy you a packet of crisps and a pop. And people don't understand the relative devaluation of currency which goes forward because of inflation. So I think it's a really sensible decision. And like Councillor Wilson said, to get an offer above valuation is pretty good in this day and age, and it shows the intent of the developer to push forward. It's down on its feet, and I think what we're going to get there is improvement rather than sort of recycling of the same old thing. So I think really, I must commend you guys for doing a really good job. I know people are concerned with selling the family jewels and stuff like this, but it's 1/3 where we don't have any say in what happens there, really, because we're the minority there, and we're never going to come up with a 1/3 share of the equity to invest in that. So I think it's realistic, and I commend everybody here for coming up with a realistic outcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Neil. Adam?
Yeah, thank you, Neil, for those words. I think, you're right. We've had to be pragmatic in terms of what was realistic, and ultimately, as I said before, the primary incentive here is to get that regeneration going, and it simply was not going to get moving in the way things are currently structured, in terms of how in terms of the viability of the person putting up the capital to make it happen. So I think this is, as I said, works well for all parties. You did obviously you raised the point about paying off our debts. That is no doubt true, but like I said before, primarily we're looking at this as in terms of the opportunity to get the regeneration moving. But at the same time, we've made sure we're not financially worse off, and in fact we're likely to be financially better off through this deal as well. So all things considered, I think it's definitely the right way to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neil and Adam. I'm just looking forward to going to that boutique cinema. So, Amy.
And it's probably worth saying that the developers would probably like it if we used the proper name, which is now Windsor Royal, rather than Windsor Yard. So I think they had a change of heart with the name as well, didn't they? So Windsor Royal is the whole complex. Yes.
There you go, Neil. You have your wish already. They've changed the name. Okay, can we agree that with the new name?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think that's the end of the meeting, isn't it? We don't need to go into part 2. So thank you very much for attending the meeting, everyone. Good night.